rest of his team does look pretty weak to that Lapras.
Well, let's take a look at the leads as we get into our very first game of the winner's final set between Alex Gomez and James Baek. Alex is going to be bringing Lapras and Whimsicott, a very standard start for Alex. But let's see what leads James goes with. Rotom and Snorlax. You called the Rotom, Aaron.
Yeah, the thing about Rotom is it's not necessarily in an amazing position because if it wants to Nasty Plot, it has to take potentially an attack from the Whimsicott and the Lapras. We've seen that this Whimsicott carries Fake Tears. We've seen that this Lapras carries Max Lightning. The Max Lightning is actually such a big deal here because what James' Snorlax likes to do is really just click Yawn and try to put things to sleep. But of course, Max Lightning can just prevent the sleep from coming out immediately. So Alex on this first turn has a pretty safe play. He can go for Max Lightning with the Lapras either onto Snorlax or Rotom. And then Whimsicott has tons of options. You can go for Taunt onto Rotom if you want to prevent it from going for a potential Nasty Plot setup. You can go for a Tailwind as well just to increase your speed immediately. Or even a Fake Tears. For example, a Fake Tears maybe onto the Rotom Wash as well as a Max Lightning. So Alex has a lot of options, and I think the Snorlax actually ends up limiting James because the Lapras has Max Lightning. It means that it can't do the main thing that it wants to do, which is spread those sleeps around with Yawn.
Yeah, that's going to be a really important thing for this Lapras to set up is that electric terrain to deny the Yawn and deny the sleeps. Alex goes for a very early Gigantamax again, which really doesn't surprise me given how we've seen Alex play this hyper-offensive style of play. But Rotom for James going for a Protect. Is that the right call based on what this Whimsicott decides to do? And it looks like it is as Fake Tears gets denied by the Protect and the Max Lightning goes right through it.
Yeah, so even doing a little bit of damage is really important in dealing with this Rotom Wash because it's likely a Pokemon that James wants to consider Dynamaxing into this matchup. So getting that electric terrain up immediately means, yeah, no more sleeps and Snorlax opts for the Yawn, but not gonna do anything through the electric terrain. So I think, you know, James wanting to scout out for whether or not Alex's Lapras has that Max Lightning. It indeed does. And now James is kind of in a tricky spot because the Snorlax is really not going to do anything. It has that super effective Seed Bomb, but, you know, it doesn't really do any damage against Lapras. And Lapras here in a great position to maybe just set up screens with AG Max Resonance. Rotom here could opt to stay in. Of course, could try to go for something like a Nasty Plot. Looks like James actually wants to switch out, maybe trying to bait an attack away. For example, maybe a Max Lightning into that Rotom slot, since Alex revealed the Fake Tears Max Lightning play the previous turn. Alex here, once again, really has so many options because James is effectively playing a 2v1 where his Snorlax really isn't doing anything. So Alex could play very safely. A safe play would be to go for Fake Tears, you know, Max Lightning onto the Rotom, but you might want to consider going for a G-Max Resonance as well just to get those screens because it's just going to be so hard to KO Lapras after that.
Well, Fake Tears is not going to be affected by Dragapult's Clear Body, but the G-Max Resonance comes through from Alex's Lapras and right into the Dragapult that just got switched into the field. That's a one-hit knockout, setting up the Aurora Veil and giving Alex a one Pokemon lead.
That's a great play there. If the Rotom stays in, you know, it still takes a hefty amount of damage, especially if it chooses not to Dynamax, but that's kind of a hard call out by Alex saying, I don't think you're going to Dynamax. Even if you do, I still get some fair amount of damage there. And look how little damage Seed Bomb does. A super effective attack into Gigantamax Lapras, but with screens up, you know, it does, in the end, like 10-15%. So, great start to the game here for Alex. He's played so well with this Lapras Whimsicott mode in so many of his matches, and once again, he continues to push the momentum here in the first game of Winter Finals.
But what can James do in order to come back into this match? You know, what is the Dynamax target for the team? Is it going to have to be this Rotom that you said is such a necessary component for James to use as a part of their team strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with this Rotom. So you see that James is opting for the Protect this turn, which makes sense. You want to stall out this last turn of Gigantamax. Since we know that James's Rotom has Nasty Plot, it then, you know, goes to Nasty Plot. If you can get maybe a Nasty Plot off, stall off the screens, there's Togekiss in the back for redirection support with Follow Me, then maybe James has a chance. So he really has to be careful right now, though. For example, if you go for the obvious Protect, Alex could predict that, go for a double up onto the Snorlax, and that would be super, super bad for James.
Oh, and it kind of looks like the double up's going to happen because the Fake Tears connects onto the Snorlax. So where does this Max Geyser go? Alex's Lapras firing it off right into James's Snorlax and calls the Protect from the Rotom. Gets a decent chunk of damage onto James's Snorlax, leaving it very low in HP.
Alex has played pretty much perfectly back-to-back turns. I mean, he's called it right correctly with Lapras every single turn. And the plays Alex are making are relatively safe, right? Snorlax is a Pokemon that rarely carries Protect, so you can pretty safely go for that double up. But to see a Lapras go for 3 attacks and not take a single attack in front of a Rotom Wash that's been on the field for so many turns, I think is definitely really impressive. So Alex just pushing his lead and tempo even more. However, James has stalled out Dynamax now, and the Rotom can go for that Dynamax that James is opting for, just start getting some damage off, but it's still going to be pretty tricky. A big question is, what does Alex have in the back? He really tends towards, for example, that Dracovish and that Conkeldurr, and with screens being up, there's still a fair amount of bulk, but I think if James wants the mount to come back, it has to start here. I think he had the option to maybe go for a nasty plot with the Rotom, but looks like he preferred just to get damage off. He has to respect the threat of Life Orb Freeze Dry from Lapras. You can definitely understand why. But that's a huge, huge lead for Alex, so we'll see if James can claw back into this one.
This might be the start of it. We saw James opt to Dynamax Rotom and go for a Max Lightning into Alex's Lapras. But the question is whether or not that's going to be enough, as Lapras gets this Tailwind boost coming in from the Whimsicott partner. So Freeze Strike goes onto the Rotom, does a decent amount of damage. If that Rotom had a Dynamax, that would have been a knockout there.
Yeah, so once again, a safe play from Alex's end, knowing that the Rotom had protected last turn. So Max Lightning is finally going to come out and is going to target down the Lapras for a knockout. But, there's still a couple turns of screens left, and now, more importantly for Alex, he set up the Tailwind as well. So, for example, there's that Dracovish in the back. You can just come out and get really, really powerful Vicious Rends off in the rain, boosted by Tailwind and Choice Scarf. You can pretty much one-hit KO a lot of, Pokemon, especially like the Togekiss that's out right now. So, James basically, in order to win this, has to do enough damage, and that's the main thing, right? Because Snorlax isn't doing very much damage right now. Togekiss is used more for support, so it's all about whether Rotom can distribute enough damage while the screens are up.
Yeah, that's the kind of the big question that needs to be answered, but the Dracovish is what's going to be in the back for Alex. So that's a lot of pressure on the field that James is going to have to try to maneuver around with the 3 Pokemon that are left in a Snorlax that's very low.
Yeah, so for Alex's end, I think going for Vicious Rend onto the Togekiss and Moonblasting Rotom is always a pretty safe play. I think you really have to respect the offense that actually can come out from Togekiss in Dazzling Gleam or Air Slash. James, as you saw, is actually going to opt for the Protect this turn, so what the Protect allows him to do is just buy a turn of Rain, buy a turn of the Aurora Veil as well, and maybe get a free Max Lightning off into Dracovish. But with the Aurora Veil being up, the big question here that I have to ask is, how much does it actually do to the Dracovish? If Max Lightning is a 2-hit KO, then I think there is a much better shot for James to win this, but if not, it's still going to be really tricky, even with the Protect coming out right now.
James' Togekiss protects. Vicious Rend goes right into it, so that is what the Dracovish is going to be locked into. But a double into the Togekiss, maybe not expecting that was going to be enough. Max Lightning, though, this is the question you wanted answered. And that is a 3-hit knockout, it looks like, if the screens stay up.
Yeah, so showing the value of getting that early Aurora Veil, this Dracovish takes it. And yeah, there's still one more turn of Aurora Veil, so what's tricky here for James is, do you consider going for a double Protect? You can also consider switching out, sacrifice the Snorlax so you have further redirection support. So it looks like James is going to opt for the latter, but this Snorlax is definitely going down to a Vicious Rend, and then Moonblast will go into the Rotom and do a hefty amount as well.
Snorlax gets knocked out as soon as it gets right back into the battle. Even with the critical hit, it just seems like a cherry on top of Alex's gameplay so far. Moonblast into the Rotom to undo all of that berry healing that happened, and another Max Lightning comes through. It's not enough still.
Yeah, this Dracovish just protected so well by the Aurora Veil. Alex managed the Aurora Veil turn super, super well, and that's because he just had such a good lead to the game. So because James has Protect and Follow Me on this Togekiss, by going for Follow Me, you don't get that added increased damage from the Vicious Rend. That being said, the rain is up, and Vicious Rend still does a considerable amount. You have that Moonblast as well. So James now at least has both of his Pokemon out, and so he has a bunch of questions to ask. Yeah, he's going to opt for, I think you always want to protect one Pokemon and attack with the other, and so in this position, he's going to opt to protect the Rotom. Of course, Alex can predict this and go for the Vicious Rend just directly into the Togekiss, but I think because Alex now knows that the Togekiss has Protect, he pretty much often doesn't want to double up into the same slot because he's ahead right now in terms of the Pokemon count. So let's see if he calls the correct target here with the Dracovish. Vicious Rend comes out, and it does go into the Togekiss.
Calls it. Oh my goodness, that call might have just sealed the game for Alex, as it is just Rotom left, even though it protected in this Moonblast isn't going to do damage. Ooh, that Rotom is still not sitting at a very hefty health total.
Yeah, so, you know, the other play that I think James could have made there was just going for the Protect on Togekiss and then Thunderbolting to KO the Dracovish. I think Alex was most likely going for a Moonblast onto Rotom anyway, and I'm not sure would have picked up the KO. Rotom still has like a fair amount of health. I think Alex's play there is it's pretty safe to go for the Fish's Rend onto the Togekiss and for a nasty plot. And Alex in that position can even just go for the Resonance, get the screens off. And even though Rotom is boosted at +2 special attack, with screens being up, still not sure it's able to get that one-hit KO onto the Gigantamax Lapras. But I think Snorlax probably needs to be switched out. Arcanine is interesting because it's weak to that Lapras, but at least can pressure with Snarl and can bait out Max Geyser. What James needs to do is kind of what he did in this last game, which is stall out the Gigantamax Prince from Lapras. So want to stall out that Rotom Wash, and yeah, Alex, really little reason to adjust. Once again, Whimsicott Lapras just worked out so well for him in that last game.
Agreed. And ooh, would you look at that? Arcanine as a part of the lead for James. So maybe predicting a little bit of that Snarl pressure onto the Lapras that's going to be leading for Alex.
Yeah, so what makes this so tricky is, like, you want to click Snarl, right? But Whimsicott could easily go for Tailwind, and you can just max Geyser into the Arcanine. So James is actually essentially trying to bait out that attack right now, opting for the Protect. Is actually doesn't want to risk the Fake Tears and the Max Lightning play onto the Rotom either, because he knows that might just pick up the KO, right? So might as well just get that Dynamax out from Rotom immediately, start distributing damage. But from Alex's end, you know, you could always go for Tailwind, Gmax Resonance if you're either expecting Arcanine to protect or switch out. The Resonance always is also safe in the sense that it will protect you from further damage. So big question here from Alex's end, you know, does he opt for the Fake Tears Max Lightning play? Does he opt for the Tailwind Resonance? I think typically Tailwinding and Resonancing is super safe. It covers the option of Rotom maxing, it covers the Arcanine protecting, but if Alex wants to play aggressive, you could also just go for that Fake Tears Max Geyser into the Arcanine. So I like James's decision to Dynamax the Rotom immediately. He knows that he has to do damage to Lapras earlier around this time.
Well, how does Alex respond? Typical. We're going to see the Gigantamax early once again from this Lapras, which I think is a great way to match this aggression that James is now going with, Dynamaxing the Rotom so early. So Lapras Gigantamaxing should be able to pressure out that Gmax Resonance to set up Aurora Veil, or let's see whether or not Alex actually calls this Protect coming in from Arcanine. That could be huge in order to set up this game for the long run. Taunt coming through from Whimsicott. Yeah, so Rotom, even if it was trying to go for the Nasty Plot, would not be able to have gotten it off. And that does a lot of damage to Lapras.
Yeah, that's actually enough for a 2-hit KO, which is a really big deal if the Aurora Veil doesn't go up. Of course, you can just Tailwind an Aurora Veil the subsequent turn, and there's the Max Geyser. So James calling the first turn correctly, doesn't get baited into a Nasty Plot. Alex does not get the screens up either, but that actually might work in his favor because, of course, he can just go through Tailwind and set up the screens this turn. I think the big question to ask here, this next turn, is do you just go for the Max Geyser onto Arcanine again if you're Alex, or do you predict the Arcanine to switch out into, say, something like that Dragapult or Togekiss and go for a Gmax Resonance? Of course, Dragapult can take a Geyser, but it definitely does not want to take a Resonance. In that last game, we saw that Alex just went for the Fake Tears Resonance play onto what was the Rotom slot last time around. So I think Alex here definitely wants to click that Tailwind, because by clicking Tailwind, it means that you will get the Resonance off and set up screens, allowing you to survive a Max Lightning. Of course, if Alex decides, okay, I don't really actually need Lapras, I want to just KO the Arcanine, then he can go for a Geyser here. But I think Tailwind Resonance will at least allow him to survive a Max Lightning from that Rotom Wash. And I think, yeah, just being able to survive one more turn with Lapras, I think, is such a big deal. So there's a switch into Dragapult. Let's see if Alex calls this and goes for a Resonance with that slot, whether it's just a Max Geyser.
Whimsicott goes for the Tailwind, so Lapras going to be the fastest Pokemon on the field. And Gmax Resonance comes out. Where does this go?
The Dragapult.
It's going into the Dragapult. Oh no, James getting punished again for switching in the Dragapult. Gets one hit knocked out, didn't even need the Fake Tears this time. And Aurora Veil gets set up for Alex.
Yeah, that's such a big turn there once again. And we'll see if the Lapras now can hang on from this Max Lightning with the Aurora Veil up. It is close. I mean, it took some Life Orb damage. Is it enough? Oh, it's so bulky.
Oh, it's not. Wow.
Lapras
I was
On.
convinced.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I think Alex was prioritizing that Gmax Resonance. He's probably thinking, you know, even if the Arcanine stays in, can the Arcanine actually pick up a knockout onto my Lapras with its attacks, with screens and rain being up? Because Arcanines, you know, often aren't very offensive at all. You only carry a fire type attack or maybe Snarl like James's Arcanine does. And so even like Alex gets even more than he bargained for there by getting a free knockout onto a Dragapult. Arcanine is a Pokemon that doesn't offer anything for James right now. So once again, excellent plays by Alex after that first turn. And with Rain and Life Orb being up, I'm wondering if like a Max Geyser can still just KO the Arcanine right now. Like it might just be enough to pick up the knockout. And what makes this so tricky to navigate for James is just not having any other offense other than Rotom, right? Like Arcanine, Dragapult, Togekiss, none of those can really touch the Lapras at all. So while Rotom's been able to do some damage, that Resonance is just such a big deal.
Protect comes through for Arcanine. And here comes a Moonblast from Whimsicott. Wants to go after this Rotom on James's side, which actually drops the special attack. But the Max Geyser comes through from Lapras. And it goes right into the Arcanine. Is that enough? It is! Gets the knockout through the Protect with the rain up.
This Lapras is just taking KO after KO after set after set. So impressive. Max Geyser actually comes out here from the Rotom Wash instead of that Max Lightning targeting Whimsicott. So maybe expecting a Max Guard from the Rotom, or just wanting to get deny James from a free switch in there. Because if Lapras goes down, of course, you get a free switch into something like that Dracovish. But Alex still has all of his Pokemon right now. He has Fake Tears Pressure, and of course, he got that special attack drop onto the opposing Rotom Wash. Screens are up, Tailwind is up. So I think Alex still looking like he's in a very commanding position. The main reason for that is because James's only means of offense is that Rotom Wash, and now that doesn't even do as much because of the special attack drop. So yeah, we're kind of in a similar scenario here. But I think, you know, yeah, it's just really tough for James to eke it out. Like, I think what he has to do is basically call every turn correct now, expecting the target from Rotom and, or from Lapras and Whimsicott.
Whimsicott goes for a taunt onto the Togekiss, trying to deny that follow me pressure. But, oh, Rotom actually gets a chance to hang on, but it gets frozen! Oh, no!
It gets frozen, but yeah, I mean, even with a Thaw out here, you know, it's gonna eat its berry to heal back a little bit. It's just tough because Alex still has two Pokemon in the back and the rain is up, and Rotom does Thaw out, so it's gonna get the Thunderbolt off. But that is so little damage after that special attack drop.
Yeah, that's barely anything, and even with the not super effective damage that was coming through, Dracovish gets a chance to come back onto the field for Alex. In the rain with the Choice Scarf, and we saw how much damage this Vicious Rend can do to the Togekiss that we just saw Protect just a moment before.
Yeah, I love the taunt play from Alex's there end as well, and I think, yeah, James has to go for the double here to even have a shot, but, you know, the Dracovish can just get the one-hit KO onto Rotom. Actually targets the Togekiss because Moonblast is going to pick up the KO here onto Rotom. So, yeah, I think the taunt was actually really smart, and we'll cover that play as we'll see Alex, yeah, take this set 2-0. What the taunt does is it covers for the Dracovish attack, or sorry, the Togekiss trying to go for Follow Me. Once you get that taunt off, you can't Follow Me or Protect, which means Dracovish gets that one-hit KO onto Togekiss. Because Alex got that special attack drop onto the Rotom as well, at this point, Dracovish is your win condition, especially after all that damage. Alex even gets that freeze dry against the Rotom. So, yeah, I mean, the Whimsicott